Now, this takes us to defensive technical roles. So we're going out of the non-technical and hybrid, and we're going into technical. And with these roles, and we could play a lot of devil's advocate or split a lot of hairs here with these terms of defensive versus offensive. But when we look at defensive cybersecurity roles, one of the ones that usually comes out and is at the top here, for example, is Cybersecurity Architect. Okay, and you can almost think of this person as the technical CISO a lot of times. They do a lot of things. They oversee a lot of the technical engineering activities, as you can see these roles that we have over here that kind of generally operate in the universe under the cybersecurity architect. They'll design security strategy from a technical standpoint. They will come up with plans as to how we're going to roll out technologies and get new types of controls and things in. And then they will depend on, these people, the cybersecurity engineer for network or the cybersecurity engineer for endpoint security or firewalls to implement the things that they've architected. Now, in smaller organizations, you will see architects doing engineering duties, right? You might see one or two people combining and doing all these roles together, but generally we try to keep them separated out. So under that, if we go to, for example, cybersecurity engineer for networks, you will see that this is a security engineer that has a strong technical background in deploying, configuring, and administering networks. I mean, you can't really secure a network if you don't understand in detail how a network works. So these roles generally have a lot of background in network engineering, and that's migrated or morphed them into a cybersecurity network engineer. And again, a very good role, very popular role. You see it a lot in the cybersecurity world. There's also firewall engineer. These people are primarily concerned with managing, configuring, and even to some extent designing firewall implementation schemes. Now, how that firewall will fit into the overall security equation, that would usually be something that's more along the lines of what the cybersecurity architect would be doing. But then the firewall engineers would be the ones designing how this is going to be implementing it, and also they would be responsible for engineering new rules that need to be put in and that type of thing. Again, it's one of the older roles, one of the roles that's been around a long time. There were firewall engineers before the term cybersecurity was even coined, right? So we've had firewalls for a really long time, and this is a role that's going to be around for a while. Even if you think about cloud migration, right? Well, when you migrate to cloud, you still have to have firewalls. They may be software defined now, so you're looking at the importance of WAFs, and you're looking at software network firewalls versus hardware, but you're going to need firewalls, all right? Now, in addition to that, there's endpoint cybersecurity engineering, and this is becoming more and more prevalent, partially because what this job really entails is you're at the endpoints. You're dealing with the endpoint security, so things that you'd put on each individual host machine via group policy or some automated rollout process to where each individual machine has protection on it at the host level. All right. So part of the reason this has become so popular is if you look at the number one way that organizations are compromised, it's usually through social engineering with phishing or farming or something like that. And a lot of that stuff can be thwarted at the endpoint. Maybe that user is going to always be not so smart and click on that link, but you can do things at the endpoint to minimize the impact of them clicking on that link, or to make it a moot point if they click on that link. And these are the types of things that the endpoint cybersecurity engineers are involved in, and they do on a day-to-day basis. So again, a pretty rewarding job. You get to deal with it security from the endpoint perspective. Not so involved with networks and things like that. Definitely focused on endpoint. Now, we also have Devops cybersecurity engineers. And this is kind of a thing that's really been driven hard because of migration to cloud. DevOps and SecDevOps is becoming really, really important with our rapid migration to cloud. So when we say DevOps, we're talking about groups and technologies that are responsible for bringing together development and operations. You don't want those two things to be separate anymore. You want to merge those two things. It's very fast growing in demand. Merging these two together leaves some obvious security gaps. We have development, which has security issues. We have operations that have security issues. You put those together, you amplify those security issues. So if you know DevOps and you know cybersecurity, let me tell you, you're going to be in high demand for the foreseeable future because of the fact that, again, when we talk about cloud, this is a big principle in that regard. All right. Now, down at the bottom, we do have forensics analysts that could play on the team under, in this universe, but they could also play on the offensive side, and they could kind of be on their own as well. I've even seen forensics analysts, work under the risk office. The chief risk officer was the person that the forensics analyst reported to. So that role could be essentially under a lot of different other roles, and it really entails, analyzing digital forensics evidence. It used to be a lot of hard drive stuff involved, but again, as we migrate to cloud, as we migrate to more virtualization, memory and traffic forensics are becoming more and more important. So if you're going to go the forensics route, you're still going to need to have a solid foundation in networking and in how memory works. Because if you're trying to set yourself up for the future, that's where a lot of it's going to be going forward. Now, next we're going to jump into SOC. You generally have a SOC lead or a SOC manager, and this person could report to the cybersecurity architect, or it could be a different party organization altogether. But what's important to note here, especially for those of you that are entry level, is a lot of people enter cybersecurity as a SOC 1 analyst. Like there are a lot of oftentimes there are a lot of job openings for a level 1 SOC analyst. Okay, and it's a good place to learn about some of the basic things that are around security. You're not having to touch you're not going into firewalls and changing rules and stuff like that. You're literally looking at logs, looking at alerts, tracking down those alerts, examining traffic, examining files, examining memory to see if, that alert was something real. And you do a lot of interacting with other departments like forensics and incident response, because a lot of incident response processes and a lot of incident response efforts are launched from the SOC. They're the ones that see things weird and they hand it off to IR, and the next thing you know, you got an incident going on. And a lot of times you will see that because you'll see the SOC team and the incident management team kind of working together oftentimes. There's also the incident response practice. All right, so next we're going to move into offensive technical roles. Now, if you were to try to nail me down into an area where I have the most experience, these bottom two roles are definitely the areas that I live in, offensive and some of the newer roles that we'll talk about, like cyber. But offensive cybersecurity roles, you spend most of your time doing things like attacking, emulating attacks, planning attacks against adversaries, and but it's done in a very controlled circumstance and in operation, usually under a contract. For example, pen testing. If you're a penetration tester, you spend your time trying to break into or compromise devices, networks, people, and systems. And then once you are able to compromise them, you end up writing reports on how you did it, and you will give that customer or that party recommendations on how to keep it from happening. Now, there is a quite involved process for doing this. There's a whole process of drawing up a contract, getting whoever you're doing the pen test for to sign that contract and agree to the conditions. And then there's a process of going through, you start off with reconnaissance to identify all their stuff. You go with enumeration and scanning to find vulnerabilities in their stuff. Eventually, you exploit those vulnerabilities that you discover So you're breaking into systems legally. We do a lot of pen testing for banks. So we break into banks. We do a lot of pen testing for some government organizations. We break into those government organizations. And, once we get in and prove that we've gotten in and gotten the information, we write up these detailed reports called pen test reports to show what we found, the vulnerabilities we discovered, how we were able to exploit them, the ones we weren't able to exploit. Once we got in, what we were able to do. And then here's our mitigations on how to keep it from happening again. Here's the things that you need to fix. That is the life of the penetration tester. Now, within the pen testing world, you could specialize in a lot of different areas. For example, we have Web App Pentester, and their primary focus is on testing the security of actual web applications. All right. And when you hear terms like cross-site scripting, SQL injection, these are the types of things that you test when you're doing web app testing. All right. There's also network-based pen testing. There's application pen testing, where you're testing applications. And then there's cloud-based pen testing. That's, kind of an emerging thing to where you're doing the same principles, but now it's based on cloud. And one of the things that's actually happening is, with the advent of us migrating to cloud rapidly, web applications and APIs and things like that, and applications in general, have become a bigger focus, because the way that you interact with your data in the cloud is through some web application or through some API. So that's definitely, kind of sped up the prevalence and the demand for those job roles. We also have offensive cybersecurity engineers. All right. And usually they have pen testing and other offensive skills already. And they've kind of taken out those skill sets and molded them into, kind of merged it with, now I want to dig into and understand how this firewall technology works and that type of thing. And they engineer, these attack scenarios. They engineer solutions for it. And you get to kind of put on both hats there. Here's the technology. Here's how it works. Let's see if I can break past it. All right, now let's go back and see if I can reconfigure this device to see if I'm able to stop myself from getting in, using the technique that I was just using there to get in. And that's what that's actually for. Now, going back, there's also, tactical offensive operator. And generally where you will see this is with a lot of the government jobs that deal with tactical offensive operators. CIA, NSA, DIA are some of the government organizations that will have roles like that. Now, I'm not telling you anything that's secret. This is public information that these positions and these roles exist out there. But this is where you could get them. You might also get in a role like this working for a government or defense contractor. These roles are very rewarding. They're high in demand. And, you're actually on the front line fighting with the threats, from other countries and things like that, whatever the enemies of your country is. All right. So, again, it is a very rewarding role here, and a lot of people like it. And that's some of the, like we said, the offensive roles. Now, there are some newer roles that are emerging, and one of the first ones that I want to talk about is cyber threat hunting. This is an area we've got a lot of traction in. I've gotten a lot of following in this field, and we've gotten a lot of really great contracts in that area. But what a cyber threat hunter does, now, when everybody in cybersecurity says, yeah, we're on the front lines fighting with the enemy, but cyber threat hunters you're truly in the environment. You're in the environment hunting for the threat actors. You're chasing them down. You're fighting with them. It's a battle of wits where you're actually in the environment that they're in, tracking them down, hunting them. All right. And that is as close to, in the trenches with the adversary as you're ever going to get as cyber threat hunting. It is an in-demand role. It pays well. It's one of the things, I primarily focus most of my time on pen testing, incident response, and threat hunting as a functional day-to-day job. And this is one of the areas that I enjoy the most. It's challenging. you'd have to have very formidable offensive skills, very good defensive skills, very good investigative skills. You need to have done several other things and become very good at those things to make yourself a good threat hunter. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be good at these things to go into threat hunting, but to be a very good one, you're going to have to master these things. Right? But it is definitely a popular role. Now, there's also the cyber threat intelligence analyst, which primarily deals with, threat intel, taking that in, gathering it, creating it, and figuring out what the data and what the intelligence actually means. And even more emerging than that is the cyber data scientist. So you have a lot of people that have a traditional data science background with machine learning and AI and that type thing that are now taking that skill set, and it's becoming very, very useful and very powerful in cybersecurity. If you just go and look at most of the security vendors out there now that have products, almost all of them have the word artificial intelligence or AI or machine learning in their product marketing material. So that is a very growing and emerging role as well. Now, again, this is meant to give you a peek at some very, very common roles in cybersecurity. And for you guys that are coming into this new, my hope here, what the reason I created this is I want it to be a way for you to look at these roles and kind of figure out if any of them sound like it's something you would be interested in. And then you can kind of decide what route you want to go or which area you want to enter, and hopefully take some of the confusion out of it for you. So thank you for watching this video. And as always, share, because I firmly believe it'll help a lot of people, and I need you guys to help me share it. Thanks again for watching.